What if what we call public opinion was just a manufactured narrative that makes it easier to convince people that if their views are different, then there's something wrong with that, or there's something wrong with them?
Spending is a tax. As soon as the government spends money, eventually it's a tax. Sometimes we put a direct tax on the people, sometimes we borrow the money, and sometimes we print the money.
Freedom and the dignity of the individual have been more available and assured here than in any other place on earth.
The Patrick Riggins Show. And now your host, Patrick Riggins.
Oh, yeah. You've completed the weekly marathon. You've made it to Saturday at 4 p.m. finish line. You've arrived at the Patrick Riggins Show. Sure, it's a long run, 7 whole days, but it's worth it. Here you're going to get logic and reason to carry you through the next week. These are the headwaters of freedom and liberty. What you hear on this show today, you'll probably hear downstream on another one in a few days or a few weeks, depending on how far down the river they are. You might not even hear it until sometime next year. Who knows? But since you're listening today, you'll already have quenched your thirst for freedom and be eager to share with others the cool spring water of liberty. Oh, and before we get started, let me say you're listening to us, the Patrick Riggins Show, on the Libertarian Lighthouse Radio Network and locally on News Talk 98.7 WOKI. As most of you already know, I listen to a lot of different sides of talk radio during the week, but something that really caught my ear was how much of what I heard this week, these arguments concerning government and its role in our lives. We were talking about this on the show almost a month ago, and some of it was even before that, back to last year. What's interesting, though, is I know these other commentators and political pundits don't listen to this show. It just hasn't reached the point that national people are listening to what we have to say here. I'm not going to kid myself. So the only other conclusion is, despite what the major mainstream media and the Washington government establishment from both parties want you to believe, despite them, this country is starting to move towards more libertarian ideas. And it's absolutely driving these people bonkers. You hear it when they give press conferences. You hear it when they're reporting on it. It's really starting to permeate the so-called ruling class of government, and they're starting to panic. They don't want you making decisions for yourself. They don't want you living your life without government. They don't want you demanding your individual rights. And again, this is both sides, Democrat and Republican, liberal and conservative. Let me remind you, though, I'm talking about establishment people, not the rank and file. The people out here in the country might still label themselves Democrat or Republican, but they have practically nothing in common idea-wise or income-wise or anything else. These regular people out here have practically nothing in common with this ruling class establishment people in government and media. But getting back to my point, I think what I heard this week demonstrates just how far ahead this show is and how far ahead you'll be when you listen to it. It's really nice to hear all these ideas from this show from back then being repeated now. It gives us a feeling of validation. Not that we need it, not that we're looking for the approval of others, but just to know that the ideas espoused here are starting to catch on in the rest of the country. That's what I take away from all this. No, it's not, hey, I told you so, and I told you I'm right. It's none of that, not in the least. What I take away from this echoing of ideas of this show is America is starting to wake up to the reality that is government run amok. And they want to put a stop to it. The problem is, a lot of people don't know what to do. They've been voting Democrat or Republican all their lives. They don't know how to break ranks and vote for another party. But don't worry, that's why we're here. That's why this show is here, to help you break out of this two-party thinking and start using the intelligence and the reasoning, the logic that you have within your brain to see through all the hoopla and vote for a good libertarian or libertarian-leaning candidates. It makes me feel good to know that I'm associated with this show and the service it's providing, that it's putting ideas and information out there, well, like I said, almost a year ahead of the rest of the pack on the radio dial. This is why I say I try not to waste your time on this show. I try to pack in 43 minutes or so of good logic and reason that you can use not only in your political opinion, but throughout your life. Govern yourself with independent thought instead of political emotion that often passes for it. And speaking of happenings this week, I've been watching what's been happening with this government shutdown or slim down, whatever you want to call it. What you're seeing is what's going to be happening when we hit the debt limit debate, which is starting up now. The government is going to stop payment on everything that will impact the public the most. They will try to inflict as much pain as they can in order for you to straighten up and stop questioning what they do. Stop demanding they answer to you. They also trust the mainstream media to get out there and interview people not, getting their checks and getting kicked out of their houses and not being able to afford food or medical care. This is the media's job, to highlight all this suffering, all because we demand government live within its means. And I'm just warning you, this is what's coming. We were talking about this last year when we had the debt limit show going on then. Now we're on debt limit 2, which is really more like debt limit 30. We keep raising the debt limit over and over, promising, well, this time we're going to cut that spending. But it never happens. And it's not going to happen until we demand it by kicking out the establishment people and putting in congressional representatives that will start reining in the government. We're getting the same old worn-out story every year. Every year. It never changes. The government doesn't stop spending too much money. It's like that deadbeat friend you have that complains they can never catch a break. Nothing is working out. Hey, so do you mind loaning them some money? The government isn't learning the lesson of financial management. And just like that friend, it isn't going to learn that lesson until you give it some tough love. You're going to have to stop enabling the government by allowing it to continue to spend more and more money. What's going to happen if we don't fix it this time? Our friend is going to come knocking at the door again next year, wanting to borrow some more money. It's going to be the same story all over again. We have to raise the debt limit. We have to pay our bills. If we don't raise it, we might default on our obligations. All the same scare tactics, all the same doom and gloom. I mean, are you getting tired of the excuses yet? Just look at the psychosis of this administration, this government. They are punishing the citizens of this country because we're demanding the government not spend all this money. Our creation, government, that's who created government. It was us, the citizens of this nation. Government didn't come first. We did. We created it. And here it's going to throw a temper tantrum when we demand it start living within its means. How dare we talk back to the government? Look, bub, we created you, and we can sure as heck uncreate you. And maybe that's what we need, a reset, a do-over, a complete shutdown of government, a cutting off of all aid. We immediately cease taking money from one American citizen to pay the bills of another. Then we start all over again, and this time we have to amend the Constitution every time the government wants to do something that isn't listed in that document. No two ways about it. If you want free stuff, you have to convince the rest of us to pay for it by amending the Constitution. Now, I'm not stupid. There's no way that's ever going to happen. You know why? Because 99% of this BS wouldn't pass. The American people would never vote for it. That's why we're not asked. That's why we never amend the Constitution. It wouldn't work. Instead, Congress creates government agencies to carry out aid programs, with them unconstitutionally granting those agencies the authority to fund and regulate these programs. I mean, truth be told, we're not even demanding government really live that much within its means. It stopped doing that long ago. All we're doing is trying to slightly rein back all this spending. And look how Washington reacts. It's like a spoiled child. It throws a fit and lashes out at the adults, and that would be us, the citizens. It lashes out at us trying to inconvenience everyone as much as possible. All right, we're up on the first break here on the Patrick Riggin Show. We have a whole lot to get to this hour. So we will get started on it as soon as we come back from this first break. Join us in a couple of minutes.